Good morning, everybody. Let me say a few words about our next speaker, Kenya Crawford. Kenya is an award-winning licensed psychotherapist and racial equity consultant that creates healing and liberating spaces to dismantle oppressive systems. Kenya skillfully approaches counseling and supervision as a Black queer woman from a personal, anti-racist, and anti-oppressive lens aimed towards creating a collaborative and authentic space to foster radical, holistic healing. The title of Kenya's talk is Trusting Yourself in the Uncertainty of Entrepreneurship. Please help me welcome Kenya Crawford.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Is this mic working? Beautiful. Alrighty, folks. So I'm super excited to be here. It's always nice to get back to Penn State. And I actually want to share a little bit of a story with y'all that I was thinking about while I was walking over here. So during my junior year, I was having lunch with a mentor of mine. And I always loved having lunch with mentors, one, because I was a broke college student and I wanted someone to pay for my lunch. But two, because she was always dropping some sort of gem, some sort of resource for me in this space. So while I was speaking with her, I was telling her about my work with Ally House, which is a residence hall here on campus for queer students. And while I was talking to her about this experience, she goes, I have a colleague in South Africa that really needs a consultant on this. Would you be willing to meet with them? Mind you, I'm a junior. I haven't graduated yet, haven't started my business. I had no idea what I was really doing. I just had an idea. So I met with them, I told them about my work, and they said, we want you to come to South Africa to present this to our president, but there's one problem. And the problem was that they couldn't fund my travel from State College, Pennsylvania to South Africa. I didn't know how I was going to find $3,000 to get to South Africa. I ran all through the hub, applied for every scholarship present, did whatever I could do. I even remember seeing the belly dancing club was having a competition, and the first place winner would get $750. I never belly danced a day in my life, but somehow I thought I was going to win that $750. Long story short, I didn't win the $750, but I did talk to all of my mentors, one of them being Dr. Linda Caldwell, who introduced me to Matt in the back, who was on the board of directors of Global Capacity. And I woke up one morning and I got an email from Matt, who I did not know, who told me they were going to fund the rest of my trip for me to go to South Africa to present on this project. While presenting there, I was able to achieve my first consulting client. So 10 years later, I am a consultant in this work solely because I trusted myself to either join a belly dancing club or go out to my mentors and get that funding that I needed to travel across the world to start this project. And what I've learned in this work is that being an entrepreneur means trusting yourself. Trusting yourself to do the thing that no one believes that you can do. Trusting yourself when there's no vision or no pathway or no roadmap to get you there. So I do have a question for all of you in this space. And if you feel comfortable and safe to do so, I want you to close your eyes while I ask this question. If you don't feel comfortable, feel free to look down at the ground. But I want you to ask yourself, do I trust myself? And go ahead and raise your hand if that answer is yes. Okay. Keep your eyes closed. And now I want you to put your hand down, and I want you to think about your business 10 years from now. Your product isn't selling, your services aren't selling, your website just crashed, you just got an email from the IRS that says you owe more in taxes than you expected. Your cousin that you hired to do your taxes just quit because you weren't able to pay them for the last 2 months. And now you are completely backed into a corner. And now I want you to ask yourself, do you trust yourself? Go ahead and raise your hand if you do. All right. For the people who raised their hand, you all don't have to answer, but I would love to hear what helps you trust yourself when you're backed into a corner. Who wants to go first? Go ahead. So that little nook and cranny that helps you get through. Somehow, some way, right? I love that. That's going to be such an important piece for you in your work. Okay, that works too. Who else still trusts themselves if you're backed into a corner? Who else raised their hand and wants to share? Go ahead in the back. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you don't get discouraged easily. That's going to be huge for you because there's going to be moments and times where you may be discouraged in your work. And sometimes you need to know that I can make a way out of no way. All right. Anyone else? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. I wish. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So trusting that ability to move further. I want to hear from someone who didn't raise their hand. What kept you from trusting yourself in that moment? What got in the way for you? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a really common scenario, right? There are a lot of entrepreneurs that have 9 to 5s and their work is kind of on the side. They have this side gig that they want to be a larger organization, but their 9 to 5 is the thing that pays the bills, right? The thing that pays the rent, the thing that keeps them going in this. So there's going to be moments in time where you may not trust yourself, and that's okay. But it's important to recognize what you're doing in that work. Did you also want to share something? Oh, oh, okay. Thank you for that. Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and move on just a bit. We can skip past that. Alrighty. And we are going to start with a conversation around mental health. And y'all know this already. I'm a therapist. So, of course, I talk about mental health all the time. But I think it's important for therapists to think about how we can support entrepreneurs in their mental health journey. And I can imagine I'm not alone in this space. How many people have struggled with their mental health at some point? Right? Myself included. I'm a therapist, and I've even struggled with my mental health. And the reason why it's so important for us to think about our mental health as entrepreneurs is because without managing our mental health as entrepreneurs, we're more likely to make decisions for our business when our mental health isn't stable, right? We make decisions out of scarcity, out of fear, out of anxiety, because we're not in a good space, right? You may start to take on new partnerships that don't make any sense. You might start taking on new clients or new contracts that don't make any sense because you're moving out of scarcity. You're worried that my investors are going to leave this space, leave this organization, leave my business because I'm not doing well. You may be worried that your clients no longer want to work with you. So you might start to do things outside of your norm. And as a therapist, I recognize that while I may have a really strong routine around my mental health, the one thing that will always disrupt my mental health is my business. Because I'm always looking at new ways, new services, new things that I can do. But if that fails, sometimes I have to make sure to remind myself that that failure is not me. I am not failing in this. My business may have failed in that launch. My business may have failed in that service, but Kenya is still here, right? Kenya is still present in this. So I want to encourage us to not just think about what do I need to maintain my mental health, but who are the people that can keep me in alignment to my business, right? Who are the people that can keep me in alignment to my purpose and keep me in alignment to my work? So we're going to talk a little bit more about alignment and how to get there, right? These are some of the guiding principles that I like to ask myself before moving forward with a project, before moving forward with a partnership, before saying yes to even speaking with you all today. These are questions that will inform your purpose and your passion. And your passion is going to be the thing that lights you up when you're backed in that corner. Your passion is going to be the thing that lights you up when you're maybe distrustful of yourself to move through this experience. So these questions include, Whose life do I hope to change with my business? What is the legacy I hope to leave behind? And what is the impact I hope to make with my business? Okay. So I know many of you in this room, in this space, are thinking about your next business venture, that next startup. And I want to hear from the folks who are here. What's the legacy that you want to leave behind with your business? Whose life do you want to impact? Whose life do you want to change? You don't have to answer all three, but I would love to hear from some folks that are here. Yeah, I'm a licensed therapist, so I can sit in silence for a whole hour and just be here with you. So it's really up to you. Who wants to go? Go ahead. Thank you. You're getting a mic. You're fine.
All right.
There we go.
I mean, if my business is like a product, I'd say just like that's like a small thing, just like improving their experience. Like, let's say it's like a tablet or something, just like helping them out, like making their day. But if it's like larger scale, like your company, obviously, I'd say like really changing and impacting someone's lives. So, yeah.
Yeah. Many of us want to impact people's lives with our business. That's amazing. I love that. What was your name? Brett. Thank you for that, Brett. Who wants to go next? Go ahead.
Lauren.
Thank
Oh,
you,
that's not-
Lauren.
So I would just say, mostly for like families and friends and like anyone that would like potentially look up to me, you know, if like that's something that I would leave behind, or even like, for example, like entrepreneurs today who are like more popular,
Mhm.
like I personally look up to them. So just like like giving someone that hope that like they can do it, like, you know, people like from the what like rags to riches, not specifically for the money, but just like, you know, that kind of story like really inspires people that aren't your friends and family. So just like giving people the hope to get there, you know, that like in their times of needing that hope, like I think is really powerful. So
Absolutely. Because we all need that hope every once in a while, right? And I loved what you said around kind of being that role model for other people, because you'd be surprised how many people may be talking about you or your work or your business. Your name may be popping up in spaces that you never thought of,
yeah,
right? Even in my story earlier, I had no idea who Matt was. And Matt gave me $1,500 to go to South Africa, right? So you never know what spaces your name is going to be in, your company will be in, your mission will be in. Thank you for sharing that with us. Can I hear from one more person? What's the legacy you want to leave behind? What's the impact you want to make with your business? Go ahead. Hold on, we're getting the mic. We want to make sure people on Zoom can hear you.
Okay, my name is Roberto. I'd like to improve the understanding of financial information among the public. That would be my goal. If with my project, it would be somehow related to the news articles and on finance, business, economy, but writing them in a way that it's more like understandable for the people.
Yeah, writing it in the way that people can understand, right? Many of us don't actually know how to manage our finances, let alone manage our business finances, which is also an important piece of being an entrepreneur. And it sounds like your impact may change the world in so many ways, right? And I love that many of us in this space are creating businesses to serve other people and change their lives in a way that creates that legacy that goes beyond ourselves today and goes beyond what it is that we need. And the reason why I think it's so important to have these guiding principles, right? It's so important to really understand what your passion is and your purpose is because you want to make sure you stay in your lane with your purpose and your passion, right? You want to make sure that you're not trying to replicate what other people are doing because they're going viral on Instagram or TikTok, right? You want to make sure that you're staying true to your purpose or your passion, because if you don't, then people are going to start getting confused with you and the work that you're doing, right? Well, if you wanted to help people with their finances, Why are you doing a project with an automobile company, right? Why are you doing this other work that's confusing your client? And what happens with that is your client will stop coming to you because they no longer feel special in the work that you're doing in the space. But another thing that happens when you don't stay in your lane with your business is you're more likely to burn out, right? You're more likely to lose focus about what it is that you are supposed to be doing in that work. And what I think is so important about staying focused in your work is because it goes back to your mental health. Every week I get an intake form from somebody who wants me to come in and speak or do a training or a workshop. And every once in a while, there's someone that's completely out of my focus, out of my lane, right? Two weeks ago, I got an intake form from a soccer league. I don't know about y'all, but I actually don't like soccer. I've never watched a soccer game in my life. You could ask me anything about soccer right now, and I probably won't know the answer to it. And I got this intake, and I said, well, I'm sure they want, healing and liberating spaces. I'm sure I could find something and pull something together. But what I realized is it would have taken me hours to prep that curriculum. It would have taken me hours to learn that skill and learn the population that I was working with. Hours that would have taken me away from my ideal client, hours that would have taken me away from my aligned client, and it wouldn't have allowed me to really give the service that I like to give. So I'm learning more and more in my business the importance of staying focused, because when you get distracted from your ideal client, what happens is then you'll start to get other clients that are coming from soccer leagues or NFL or all these other places, right? I don't care about sports. I'm not the consultant for you. But what I can do is now refer you to another consultant of mine or another colleague of mine that does this work. I've increased that network. I've increased that relationship. So now when she gets something that is not in her wheelhouse, she'll send it over here, right? So I think sometimes when we're in entrepreneurship, we think, oh, I have to respond to everyone. I have to work with everyone. I have to be present and engaged with everyone because that's how I thrive. That's how I make that money. And that's not always how you make the money, right? Sometimes it is building that network and building that community, because then you have that in-house referral system that is always present for you. And you decrease the chances of you being burnt out in your business. But sometimes staying focused is a little hard, right? Whether it's because you want to make more money, whether it's because you're not sure what it is that you want to do, and you're really trying to find that direction, right? I love the idea of having a board of directors. Now, you may hear from some folks here like, oh, get a board of directors for your business. Absolutely. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting a board of directors for yourself, right? These are the people and the communities that are going to support you when your business is thriving and flourishing, but also when you're backed in that corner and you're not sure how to get out of it, right? These are your board of directors that will keep you going when maybe you've lost trust in yourself, maybe you've lost guidance in your business. And the first one, I like to always encourage folks to get that cheerleader. For me, my mama is my cheerleader. Anytime I call my mama and I say, Ma, I didn't get that RFP that I really wanted, or I didn't get that client that I was really looking for, she'll always say, well, baby, you went to South Africa when you were a junior. I think you can do anything, right? She's always there to convince me, to push me, to encourage me in this work. And I'm grateful for that. And also, I'm recognizing that my mom's retired. She didn't run a business. She doesn't know some of the things that I'm talking about or what I'm doing. So sometimes you need that accountability partner, that person that will say, hey, you said you were going to launch that podcast last quarter. What happened? Right? You said this was going to be your quarter of making 6 figures and you only made 20K. What's going on? Right? You need that accountability partner that's checking you on your goals and your vision and your idea for your project and your work. Another important piece of your board of directors will be your community. And it's so imperative to find a community of entrepreneurs, find a community of folk in this work, because when you try to go to your friends who are working at 9 to 5s, you're not going to be able to get that same support from them. Because when they close their computer and they're done at 5 p.m., they don't need to worry about the company or the organization, but you do. If your website crashes at 2 o'clock in the morning, who's probably getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to fix it? You are. Right? And the only other people that will really understand that, maybe your cheerleader, right? My mom was like, oh, just put it in Google and figure it out. That's not going to help me in that moment. right? But my community of entrepreneurs will say, oh, I have this colleague that does this with Squarespace, right? I have this resource that can help you out here, right? You need that community of entrepreneurs that will support you and motivate you when you're not sure where to go, when you're not sure what to do. And lastly, it's imperative to find some sort of support for your mental health, whether it is a therapist or a business coach. While I recommend both, I recognize that resources may impact that for you, but these are the people that will hold you and help you navigate the tools and skills that you need to manage being an entrepreneur today. There are 31 million entrepreneurs in America today. I can highly suggest that most of them are probably not too happy because many of them may not be centering their mental health in this work, right? They may be thinking, oh, I'll be happy if I make 6 figures this month, right? I'll be happy if my business does well. And I can't tell you how many other entrepreneurs that I know that are millionaires that are not happy in their business because the only SMART goals they set for themselves were around metrics regarding their finances. They weren't developing that community of support. They weren't finding that therapist or that coach that will hold them and support them when they need it in the space. So I want to bring the conversation back to mental health really quickly, because when we're thinking about the importance of mental health, I want us to also recognize that the ebb and flow of entrepreneurship will frequently take you through what I like to call the sprint, the marathon, the rest, and the reprieve. The sprint, I would probably compare it to maybe your finals week, right? That's a time where your output is a little bit higher. Maybe you're studying for a little bit longer. You're doing an all-nighter. Maybe you're going to office hours every week in ways that you never have, right? That may resemble the sprinting of your business. That may resemble the week before you launch that service, right? The day before you go into that meeting with some venture capitalists because you're asking for money, right? But the same way that you're operating that sprint, you cannot operate 24/7. I don't know about you, but I love my rest. You ask me to do an all-nighter right now, I'm not doing it. I cannot do it, right? That was something I could do during finals week, but those same tools and skills that I needed to navigate finals week in that sprint will not operate in the same way with my business. And with that sprinting, it's important to recognize, like, okay, this is a short period of time. I'm going to do it for a couple of days. I'm going to do it for a week, and then I'm done. And then I'm going to move into that rest and that reprieve because I need to care for my body in this work. And when I talk about the marathon of your business, right, I think about that as a semester, right? You have the full semester. You recognize, okay, I need to study. I need to write some papers. I need to do some things, right? Maybe I'll do an all-nighter once in a while, but then I know I can maybe go downtown and celebrate when I'm done, right? I can find a way to get away from this marathon of this work. But if you are not actively moving through the ebbs and flows of your business and consistently trying to move from that output of 100% or 150%, you're going to burn out and your business is going to struggle. You're going to maybe make decisions that weren't fully thought out. You're going to make decisions that aren't really in alignment with your purpose or your passion. So I want to encourage all of you to have an honest conversation with yourself around, what does my mental health look like right now? What do I want it to look like when I'm leading a business, right? How will I turn and find those areas of support if I'm not doing too well? But also, how will I know that I'm not doing well in the ways that I need to, right? Sometimes for me, I recognize that as I get maybe a little bit more distracted, right? When my mental health is a little distressed, right? Or maybe I'm a little bit more agitated or irritated with people, right? And I'll see that show up in the way that I'm managing my team. They'll say, Kenya, you're a little off today. You didn't ask us how we were doing before we started the meeting. And I said, oh yeah, y'all right. I didn't sleep well last night, right? I'm able to get that feedback from them because they recognize that I value my mental health and I value theirs. And that is how we're able to work in this business together. That is how we're able to have challenging conversations with C-suite members around race and identity and origins, right? That is how I'm able to center those spaces with them because I recognize the importance of my mental health and I recognize the importance of the mental health of the staff that I work with. So I really want to encourage all of you in this space to take some time to think about that as well. Now, you've heard me talk a little bit about the importance of rest. If there's one thing I want you to take out of this conversation is that when we are not resting, when we do not have that rest routine, it is going to impact the way you show up in the world. If there's one thing I am the most rigid about, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm rigid about a lot of things. But the thing I'm the most rigid about is my rest. Okay, I'm one of those 9 hours people. Don't ask me to sleep 5 hours. No, I'm not showing up. Don't ask me to come into something at 7 a.m. That's not who I am. Right? I recognize that about myself. I also recognize that for me to succeed in my business, I need to take a week-long vacation every quarter. That is non-negotiable. I don't care if Beyonce called me. I don't care if Oprah called me. I don't care if Obama called me to do a workshop. Okay, maybe Obama, But regardless, I'm going to take that vacation. I'm going to take that time for myself because I know I need that to show up in my business. I know I need that to show up for my team. I know I need that so that we can make payroll every week, right? I need that for me. And the beauty of being a college student is your rest is kind of already embedded in your semester. You know when spring break is coming. You know when you have a holiday. You know when you have this time off. But as an entrepreneur, it's not embedded in your work unless you make it. So you need to schedule that time for yourself, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's a mental health day every quarter, whether it's logging off on Fridays at 3 o'clock so you can go bird watch. I don't care what you do, but do something for you. I don't care what you do, but please do something for you. It's also important to establish that celebratory language, right? As a student, you frequently know how you're doing, whether it's your GPA, whether it's an evaluation at the end of the year, whether it's your mentors telling you, hey, you kind of fumbled the bag here, what's going on? You get that consistent feedback all of the time, right? And sometimes that encourages us to celebrate. Oh, I made Dean's List? Cool, I'm gonna go celebrate, right? But as an entrepreneur, you can celebrate your business, which is great, but how are you celebrating yourself as a CEO of your business? Because just because your business is flourishing financially doesn't mean you've taken the time to celebrate yourself. How are you celebrating yourself after you've finished pitching for that venture capital? How have you celebrated yourself after you've achieved that government contract that you've been fighting for so long, right? Because we want to ensure there's no one in your business that's going to say, hey, Kenya, good job. Every once in a while, my assistant may say that to me because she knows I like to hear that type of stuff. But that's not her roles and responsibilities. That's not her job description. She doesn't have to do that. So I need to make sure that I'm making that for myself. I need to ensure that I'm making myself full in that way. Because when we don't do so, you might start to move out of scarcity. You might start to say, well, I've been doing this business for a couple of years now. I guess I'm doing a good job. I'm not really sure. But every time something comes through, I feel like I need to say yes to it. I feel like I always need to say yes to every opportunity out there. Because if I say no, will they stop? Will they stop coming to me? Will they stop buying my product? Will they stop buying my service? And this is why I think it's so important for you to have that abundance mindset, that belief, that trust in yourself, that more work will always be coming. And that's hard. That's going to be extremely challenging to believe, not just in yourself, but also your business, that I can say no to this soccer league, but I know I'll have another company or organization coming afterwards. Alrighty. So I went through a couple of things with you all today, but I think the biggest things I really want to embed in everyone in this space is the importance of trusting yourself. Because there are going to be parts of your business or times in your business where you are completely backed into a corner, where you have no idea how you're going to get through, and you have to believe and trust that I can find a way out of no way. And one of the ways that makes that really easy is staying in alignment with your purpose and your passion, right? Being very clear, I'm working in finance. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to start doing clothing and fashion and all of these other things because that's the new hip thing, right? I'm going to stay in my purpose and my passion to ensure that I make a business that's in alignment, that supports me and my mental health so that I can actively prevent burnout while working as a CEO. And I can center that abundance and center the ways in which that I want to show up as a CEO in my company. Now, I asked y'all probably 4 or 5 questions, maybe a couple more. I want to make sure that I left space for all of you here to ask me any questions about trusting yourself, about staying in alignment, about moving with your passion, or maybe even rejecting scarcity and making space for abundance. Thank you all for being here in this space with me. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember you were talking about like your mentors in the beginning. Like, how do you find these mentors so early in your college career?
That's a great question. So I was a McNair Scholar. If you're familiar with that program, it's a research program here at Penn State. And one of the things that program taught us was the importance of having research mentors and social mentors. And at first, I didn't really understand why I needed the difference. I was just like, oh, someone's doing my research, they would be the best mentor for me, right? But when I realized that, as they were trying to teach me how to do that board of directors, they were trying to help me establish I need mentors in different spaces that will support me in different ways. My research mentor was brilliant. She was a lovely woman, but she wasn't always the nicest, if I'm being completely honest. She wasn't my cheerleader, and that's what I needed. So what I realized is recognizing it's important to find a diversity of mentors. So I would encourage finding mentors that are similar to your field, maybe finding someone that's teaching a topic that's similar to yours, head to their office hours and say, hey, I really like this research, or I really like this lecture that you did. Are you willing to mentor me? Right? And sometimes it's just having a conversation. Like for me, I meet with my mentees about once a quarter. At a certain point in my career, I was meeting with my mentors once a month, right? So you want to be clear about what it is that you're asking of them, right? I'm asking of a monthly meeting or a quarterly meeting, or maybe even once a semester. I can come to you and say, I have this idea, but I need another pair of eyes on it, right? Or they can be a mentor that's saying, I tried this thing and it really didn't work. I need you to support me or motivate me in this moment, right? So you have to be clear with yourself about what you're looking for in a mentor, and then go to your faculty and ask for that, or go to other people on campus and ask for that. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Lovely. Thank you for asking that. We have another question right here in the front.
My name is Mackenzie. I'm just wondering what your major was in college, and besides the whole network of mentors, what else you did to kind of start off your entrepreneur journey.
I'm gonna be really honest. I don't remember everything I did while I was at Penn State because I was heavily involved, but I would try to remember. So I majored in human development and family studies. I had a minor in psychology and gender and sexuality, which I don't know if it's still a minor anymore. There was another minor in there. I'll be honest, I don't remember. I graduated 10 years ago. I don't fully remember. I was involved in McNair Scholars. I was in the Women Leadership Initiative. I was in the Global Leadership Initiative. I was also an RA in Ally House. I was the president of Keep a Child Alive, which was a HIV and AIDS organization. I was the VP of UNICEF, which was another nonprofit. I was also Homecoming Queen of 2014. And I'm probably sure I did I was also an SROP, which was a summer research opportunity. There were some other things in there, but I can't remember them all. But those are most of the things that I really got involved in. And that's how I met a lot of my mentors, right? My research mentor, I met through McNair Scholars. My social mentor, I met through SROP. Another social mentor of mine, I met through Residence Life. We have this whole Residence Life training program. So it's really just getting involved and seeing who was passionate about students in that way. Because Penn State's a huge school. There's a lot of faculty here. There's a lot of people here. And you have to pick them out. You have to, because they're not going to look for you, right? They're not going to say, hey, maybe they will, every once in a while. But most of them are overwhelmed because there's so many students. But if you come to them and say, hey, I really want to support you in this way, right? You said you need help TAing a class. I was TAing as a junior. Why was I TAing as a junior? Because my mentor asked me to, right? And that TA experience helped me get into graduate school. So you'd be surprised how just being in the community of your mentors opens up opportunities that you didn't even know you needed. You didn't even know were happening at Penn State. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Do you have a question up here? Yeah.
My name's Matt.
You know.
So could you speak more on the sprints versus marathons? And is that more of a, personal thing, or something you also expect your team to collaborate with during the
Ooh.
sprints and the marathons?
Yeah, so I would say it's both, right? It's something that I talk about with my team, because we recognize that no matter how much we try to foster a sense of inclusivity and wellness in my business, I recognize that there are certain months that we just have more work, right? Black History Month, everybody wants me to come in and speak, right? Mental Health Awareness Month, everyone wants me to come in and do an initiative or an assessment or something of such. No matter how well I try to plan those months, those are my sprint months. Those are the times that I know I'm doing the most labor and the output is going to look very different. So what I do with my team is I say, hey, just so we know, this month is coming up. What can we do in January? What can we do in March to prepare ourselves for this time, right? I want to ensure that we're not only taking time off to center ourselves, but how are we shifting some of the other projects that we're working on, right? I'm not going to take on a 6-month project right as I'm moving into Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm not going to be able to be present for that. Right? I'm not going to be able to show up for them. So I will say, as you get a couple years into your business, you'll start to understand those ebbs and your flows, right? For your finance business, it might look like during tax season, you're doing more labor than you are maybe in August, right? Based on what your business is, there will be different seasons of your business that need different things from you. And your job is to understand those different needs and make shifts and changes in your business to ensure yourself that you can show up in that way. Thank you for that question. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Hi. Sorry. Still the morning. My name's Emma, and I was curious about what you said about staying focused. When you're a young entrepreneur and you're encouraged to kind of say yes to every opportunity that comes your way, how do you kind of manage that staying focused and keeping the mindset of abundance as well?
That's a really good question. So for me, early on in my entrepreneurship journey, there were a couple of things that I said yes to because I wanted to do research in them, right? I wanted to see, like, do I actually like this, right? Is this the ideal client for me? Because when you're starting your business, there's a lot of things. There's a passion that they may be present. There's a problem you might want to solve, but there's probably 15 different ways to solve that problem, right? So those early clients may help inform you which clientele you want to work with, right? Which type of clients you want to work with. And sometimes that helps you understand and redefine that alignment of your passion. But you have to be intentional about that, right? You have to know, okay, I'm saying yes to this because I want to see, do I actually like working with higher ed? Do I actually like working with tech companies? Do I actually like working with government contracts, right? And for me, that's helped me say, okay, yeah, I like these people. I want to stay here. I don't want to do soccer, right? I don't want to do these other spaces because I know that that's not in alignment with work. So as long as you're being intentional about the yes and recognizing that, this yes is actually giving me information for my business, go for it. But say yes contractually where it's a short period of time. Right? You don't want to say yes to a 10-year project and you're trying to do research. That's not going to help you. Right now, you're stuck with a client for 10 years. That's not actually serving you. Did that answer your question? Lovely. Alrighty. Matt, are there any questions in the chat?
Yes. The first question is, in entrepreneurship, what are the ways you can stand out from your competition?
What are the ways you can stand out from your competition? So I'm one of those people, and maybe this is the Capricorn in me or the training in me. My competition kind of just doesn't matter for me. in that I recognize that the people who want me, right? They want my energy. They want the way that I show up in this work, right? So the people that are doing equity work or the other therapists that are out there, they're great because they're them. I'm great because I'm me. So I'm not always worried about the competition of, this person is now working with Oprah. That's great for them, right? Whatever they did to get Oprah, amazing. I don't need to do it in the exact same way if it's taking me out of my alignment, if it's taking me out of my passion. So I'm one of those type of people that competition is one of those things I like to look at sparsely, because when you look at it too much, you try to replicate your business to look like theirs. And it works for them. What works for them may not work for you. And you need to understand what works for you in your business. I know that was a little bit of a funkier answer, but it is my honest one. Go ahead.
So a lot of this is mindset switches. Is this something that you've always had, or have you had to work towards this throughout your life and career?
I didn't always have an abundance mindset. That's for sure, right? I was broke, right? I lived in New York City, which is extremely expensive, right? So for a lot of it, I needed to hustle. I needed to grind to make it work. But then once I started to get a little bit more comfortable, I had to say, okay, I don't need to hustle and grind in the same ways. I can make intentional decisions that are in alignment with me and my work. that are in alignment with me and my passion. So I would say the abundance mindset I started to experience after leaving graduate school because I was making money and it's a little bit easier to do that. But it was also a belief in my business. I knew my business was going to thrive, right? Because I kept thriving without that expectation from other people, right? There were a few things that I thought I couldn't do. I'm one of those type of people that I apply for things even though I'm not qualified for them because I know I'm gonna figure it out, right? I, again, went to South Africa without a business and landed my first international consulting client. I never did the work before. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I could figure it out. I trusted in myself. I trusted in my mentors. I trusted in my resources. I trusted in my community. Because if I didn't know how to figure it out, I knew someone who did. I knew how to figure out the answer. I knew where to go to figure out the answer. So again, going back to trusting yourself is really believing like, I can do anything in this world. And I know that wholeheartedly. Thank you for that question. Any other questions in the chat? And then I'm gonna come for you.
Yep. One more question. Do you have any recommendations on books or online resources?
Ooh. It's funny enough, I literally just posted about that yesterday on Instagram about some of the books that have changed my life. And one of the books that I actually want to recommend for people here, it's a book called Rest is Resistance. And I love this book because at first, I didn't love the author. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. She was always talking about taking naps in the middle of the day. I don't understand how you make 6 figures and take naps every day. I didn't get it, right? But after reading the book, I understood what she was trying to say and recognizing that capitalism has harmed many of our bodies, many of our psyches, many of our spirits, and it creates this idea that you always need to be going. You always need to be doing. And if you take that week off for vacation, if you take that day off for a mental health day, your business will completely just fall off the earth. And I realized after a couple of vacations, oh, my business was still going. I developed the operations that I needed to for it to continue to thrive even when I wasn't working. So I would definitely recommend Rest is Resistance. It's one of my favorite books. We Should All Be Millionaires is also another really great book, especially for entrepreneurs. There's a few other mental health books on there. Feel free to check out my Instagram. They're all there. You don't have to follow me, but the books are there because I cannot remember them in this moment. But many of those will be supportive of you for not just your mental health, but also in navigating your business. I know you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Brittany.
Hey, Brittany.
And as someone who's kind of wanting to go into facilitation or consulting work, how did you bridge that kind of fear that you, like, so young, you said as a junior you landed your first contract, and I'm a junior right now, and I just have this like fear that I won't be taken seriously because I'm young. So how did you go over, like, bridge that fear, I guess?
Yeah. So I'm used to always being the youngest person in the space. I was the youngest person in my graduate program. I was the youngest person in so many other spaces. And I've learned to see that as a privilege. I've learned to see that as a power and not something to be kind of hidden or something to feel bad about or feel guilty about because people are going to challenge it. So I remember being in a workshop once, and it was a team of C-suite members of an organization. I unfortunately can't share the organization because I had to sign an NDA, but I'm in this space. All of them are about like 50, 60-year-old white men, and they're like, Kenya, what do you know? What are you really going to teach me? I've been doing this for so long. How am I going to learn anything from you? And I said, that's great feedback. I really appreciate you bringing that into the space. What it informs me is that you have a bias towards younger people, that you think we have nothing to bring to the table. And what I realized in my research of coming to this company, of assessing your company, is that most of the people here don't trust you because you don't believe in them. So that same disbelief that you're bringing into me right now is the reason why your company is failing. So do you want to listen to me now? Right? They all shut up then, and they were finally willing to listen to me in that moment. But I've learned to see my age and my youngness or my youth as a way to really allow folks to know, like, it's Gen Zs, it's millennials that are changing the field. And if those older C-suite members aren't getting on board, they are getting kicked out. They're getting pushed out in a way. So you need to be open to listening to what it is that I have to bring to the table. Because what I'm learning in my classes, even the buildings y'all have, I didn't have this building when I was here and I just graduated 10 years ago, right? So there's so much, many of you can probably teach me in my work. So I'm constantly being open to that. But it's the people that are closed off to that knowledge that will see a plateau in their business. And then you have to recognize, okay, is that the people that I want to work with? Are those the people that are in alignment with my business? So I like to flaunt my young. I'm like, yeah, I'm 30 years old and I'm owning a company. What you doing? What was you doing at 30? I don't think you were doing the same things as I am. I find power in it. I hope that answered your question. Anyone else? No? All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being here at 11 a.m. on a Thursday when you could have slept in. I know it was rainy and gloomy. I'm super appreciative of y'all being here. I know I have some office hours with some of you. I will also be around if there are any questions. Feel free to let me know if you need any support. Thanks, y'all.